But first question I would bring to you and to this conversation, I think would be around the automation itself. I'm really fan of automating like everything, especially because I was developer, so I kind of lazy. So if I could spend 20 hours to automate a 1 hour task, I would probably spend this 20 hours to automate something because I know that we will save more time on the long term. And that's the question. What do you think it's a challenge for the security teams today? It is automation itself. It is to have people to work, too many things to carry. How do you see this challenge today? I mean, you have contact with
Sure.
customers and all the market. How do you see this? Huh?
Sure. So, what you described in your question is something that every security practitioner does, right? They decide, is it worth it for me to spend the time into building the automation? Because you could build automation even without a platform like Blink, without SOAR tools and whatnot. You could just code it. But the question is, what's the trade-off? Is it worth spending the time? Now, a platform like Blink, and I'll talk about where Blink comes in, is lowering that threshold of how much time investment you need to make in order to build your automation. So the decision becomes much clearer. And that's our vision, right? Today, the bar for building automations, the amount of time and investment and headache that it takes to automate stuff is very high. We have the SOAR tools out there. I don't need to say all the different names of them. I'm sure your audience are aware of them, and
Hmm.
probably most of them even are using some. They had a promise of, we're going to help you automate this stuff and save you time on alerts and such, and we're going to make the world look a lot easier for you. But in the end of the day, and I sold SOAR for years, so I'm very, very familiar with how they work. I'm very familiar with my competitors and such. I sold it for years. Um, but in the end of the day, they don't answer on the promise as well as they should. Maybe they lowered the bar from here, the threshold from here to here, but that's not enough. It's enough for the SOC, but barely, right? Within the SOC, you have people that know how to program, and outside the SOC, not as much. But even within the SOC, not everybody knows how to program, and even if you know how to program, it's still complicated to work with. So in my experience, I've seen companies, SOC teams and security teams that will use a SOAR tool, and they'll build maybe a few use cases that they actually automate end to end within a year of the license, right? That they acquire,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's a problem. That we're not getting to the utopian holy land of automation where we all want to be. And so what we need is something that's simpler to work with. Now, before I even touch on OpenAI and the
Hmm.
revolution that Gen AI has done here, that's helped move things forward, even before Gen AI, Blink specifically, we came to the market with a platform that we've already pre-coded the steps. Within Blink, you just kind of drag and drop things, and you put together the workflow you want. So, in my experience, from having sold SOAR, I have customers today that in a POC of 2, sometimes 3 weeks, they build more workflows than some of my SOAR customers built in a year of license. It's a dramatic change. Now, what does that mean? That's great for the SOC team. That's great for the incident responders. Wonderful. But suddenly now we're actually opening the door to a whole other area that previously wasn't reasonable, which is automation for the security professionals that maybe don't know how to program. That SOAR was way too complicated for them to even consider it. Right. That's also, by the way, why SOAR specifically targets SOC, because they know that there's more people that know how to program and can deal with the complexity, relatively deal with the complexity. So at Blink, our platform is not just for the SOC. Anybody and everybody under the CISO can use it. So we have, GRC teams that use the platform to do their compliance needs. We have vulnerability management teams, identity and access management, IT security, cloud security, SaaS security, really anything under the security umbrella that is the CISO can use the platform to automate their needs. So it's really interesting stuff. That's the revolution. It's simplicity, so that you can build in a few months time a few dozen automated workflows real easy. And the fact that it's not just for incident response. And just to give you a couple of examples, I have in Blink, for example, and Kessler, you and I talked about this offline before. Our CTO, when we have to do our SOC 2 compliance or our ISO 27001 compliance, we don't have to spend the amount of time that we would have without Blink. And what I mean by that is we built a workflow that goes out, retrieves the information that we need to know. Are we meeting certain controls? Are we not? And then automatically remediates it and just updates the CTO on Slack with a very organized report. Hey, here are the things that were not met, and here are, and we've remediated them, right? So we've killed or removed the exposure of publicly exposed S3 buckets or whatnot. And so not only is it automated the checks, not only is the remediation of them automated, he has them running scheduled daily so that these checks are, we no longer have a problem of having to wait till the end of the year to do SOC 2 compliance. Most of it is every day within 24 hours is compliant. So there's lots of use cases, lots of examples. That's just one in the compliance space. Really interesting stuff.
Cool. I think it's a good introduction, I would say, for the topic. And you were mentioning everything, and I was catching some parts of it. And I really remember one use case that I had. I was working as already a security engineer in a tourism company in the Brazilian market as well. And a lot of developers, they were creating EC2 virtual machines on the AWS, yeah? And they were creating exposure to the internet. We had few incidents and so on. Then what we did, because the teams, they could have the permission to create whatever they want. We couldn't block them through policies, and it would be a way out, I would say. But instead, what we did was like I created some Python scripts to consume the AWS API every minute to check if there was new EC2 exposed. If they were, I was alerted. This person was alerted on the Slack channel, for example. And then I was already changing the security groups, for example, so the machine would be accessible only through the VPN, etc., etc., etc. To me, was easy to do because I was a developer. I know how to code, to consume an API. I don't know. It took half an hour to do this, to get it done. But then in the other day, we could do something else. One more half an hour, one more hour. But these alerts could be better. And then becomes a software development itself. And for that specific team, I could code myself. For other teams, they didn't have developers. So then they were starting using my time. And then I became a bottleneck for the whole automation stuff. Even though they were working, but they needed to wait a lot of time to have one simple script done.
E aí, gostou
And
desse
that's
corte?
the
Então
one point
segue,
that you touched